This is Chris with Skayl, and in this video, we're going to talk about using the navigation mode of PHENOM Portal. To start, click on Navigate to get into navigation mode in PHENOM. Today, we're going to be using the PHENOM demo branch because this has some compelling content that will be fun to use as we navigate across this top bar. Now, we're not going to be addressing the IM editor as that has to do with the integration model, and that is something for a later episode. And while we've already talked about the details view, we're going to go ahead and take a look at that one more time. Now, the model that we're using today is the Air System DSDM, originally developed as part of the UCS working group, and it was transitioned to a public model, distro A model, and continued to be worked on by Skayl and our customers. So we're going to look at the Air System type, and just to get here, we'll double click. Note there's an E on this type. That means it's an entity. If I scroll down for a minute and we look through our tree, we'll find something that has an A, and that's simply indicating that this is an association. Double clicking on Air System type, it loads in all of the attributes for the Air System type along with its name and description. At this point, we're able to edit any of this information, and anytime you edit something that you want to persist, such as Air System, let's just make it called Air System, we'll just click Save, and the change is persisted. It now shows up as Air System in our model. Now, this right here shows any entities that this entity specializes. Rather, this is the generalization of Air System. And in this case, it's UCS Air Component Type. Scrolling down, we see a long list of attributes. These are compositions that make up or effectively define what an air system is. We have an air vehicle, a comm system, electrical system, and so forth. We do have a hyperlink over here. So if you're interested in seeing what the air vehicle is, you can mouse over it, click, and air vehicle type gets loaded into your details view. We can hit back, and we'll end up back here in Air System. Notice that it takes a moment to refresh the screen. As we scroll down, we can see what attributes Air System inherits from UCS Air Component Type, and that's this list as well. This list is duplicated up here, and if we click on this element here, it shows us the mapping from the specialization to the generalization. Now, we have other inherited attributes from domain resource type and even from resource type. So it shows us down here and all the way down here, all of the things that have been inherited. Finally, if Air System was an association, it would have to point to a number of different things called associated entities. In phase 3.0, these are called participants. Notice that since this is an entity and not an association, this list is empty. Now you might wonder, why is this even here if this isn't an association? Well, it turns out that the only difference between an association and an entity is whether or not it has participants. In this case, we can add participants to it and turn it into an association. Down here, we have a list of all of the entities in which Air System is composed. So for example, vehicle handover objective type, if we go there, we'll see that one of its attributes is an air system. And finally, we have associated in. And as with compositions, these are associations which point to the air system as an associated entity or a participant. Okay, so that is more or less looking through the details page. The Meridian Map is a really neat tool. Now, what it does is it gives us a very high level idea of whether or not two interfaces, if they're going to connect. So for this, I'm going to go grab a whole handful of interfaces from StatNag 4586, Edition 4, Volume 1. This is very similar to the original Edition 2 Amendment 2. I'm going to drag them in. We're going to let the Meridian Map turn away for a second, and voila, we have a mapping between all of the fields of each one of these documented interfaces. If I mouse over at the edge, it tells us which interface we're looking at. And inside, we see what attributes we're looking at. Now, we see that from to next waypoint states doesn't really seem to have very many mappings to anything else in the system. Whereas the loiter configuration report, well, it has a number of mappings throughout the system. We can click here and we can see what some of these detailed matches are. Let me try to find a better target. There we go. So this is the path, or rather, this is the documentation. This is the characteristic on which we've pointed, and these are all of the matches that exist currently in the views that we've selected. Now, what we'll find here, as we see in this list, is that we have a match between altitude and latitude. Now, one would easily argue that you're never going to map altitude to latitude, and that's pretty much true. However, they are semantically similar because they're both talking about the same kind of position. But PHENOM allows us to look at logical matches only, and now we've done some additional analysis to make sure that we're only matching up things that use the same type of measurement system axis. So now altitudes only map to altitudes. And in order to refresh this list, I'd have to make another pick up here. Let's see if I can find it again. That's an altitude and it points to an altitude. Now, this is a very strict check. It checks very specifically for the same measurement system axis. So you don't get all of the other types of altitudes it could map to. Furthermore, because of the way that things are constructed, you would miss mappings between something like a Celsius measurement and Fahrenheit measurement. Another feature of Navigate mode is the View Trace tool. This allows us to see the semantic mappings between multiple interfaces. Let's start by grabbing an inertial states message out of the nav tree and dragging it onto the View Trace tool. Now, we can see that it's got a red box on the left and a blue box on the right. The idea here is just to give us a little bit of an idea of mapping A to B, or client to server, or publisher to subscriber. There's really nothing more to the graphics than that in this case. So I'll zoom in a little bit, and we're going to use a tool that we call Matchy Match to find some matchings or mappings semantically to this inertial states message. So I'll click on position and expand that, and we see that there are a number of 100% strength matches to inertial states v2. Well, this makes sense since this is just a different version of the same message, and we'll go ahead and choose that. It drops it onto the display for us, and it goes ahead and matches position. Now, there are other things here that are mapped, but it didn't automatically bring those into focus. So what we'll do is we'll click this lightning icon, and it will go ahead and match out all the rest of the attributes for us. Notice this attribute right here and this attribute right here do not have a semantic match with inertial states v2. Everything else, however, does have a semantic match. It is possible, however, that you may want to override a match. Perhaps for some reason you want vehicle ID to map over here to this acceleration. So in that case, you could pick the link there, and you can come over here and click that link. You can say map items, and now you have created an explicit mapping between these two items. Although they don't have a semantic map, you as a user have overridden that and said these two features map to each other. Well, that takes care of navigation mode. In the next video, we'll take a more detailed look at using the diagram.